Thank you for downloading the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service. On the 16th of February 1923, the tomb of ancient Egypt's most famous pharaoh, Tutankhamun, was opened for the first time. In today's episode, Mike Gallagher is taking us back to the discovery of his resting place.
It's November 1922. The location, the Valley of the Kings, near Luxor, Egypt. Somewhere beneath the lifeless, arid rock, hidden away from the searing heat for over 3,000 years, lie the remains of ancient Egypt's boy pharaoh, Tutankhamun. And after years of searching, English archaeologist Howard Carter believes he might at last have found them.
Slowly, desperately slowly, it seemed to us as we watched, the remains of passage debris that encumbered the lower part of the doorway were removed, until at last we had the whole door clear before us. The decisive moment had arrived.
Carter had been digging for the legendary pharaoh since 1914, but many people suspected all the Valley of the Kings burials had by now been found. Until the moment of the discovery, even Carter's benefactor, Lord Carnarvon, had been sceptical. He'd given Carter one last chance.
This was to be our final season in the valley. 6 full seasons we had excavated there, and season after season had drawn a blank. We had worked for months at a stretch and found nothing, and only an excavator knows how desperately depressing that can be. We had almost made up our minds that we were beaten and were preparing to leave the valley and try our luck elsewhere. And then, hardly had we set hoe to ground in our last despairing effort, than we made a discovery that far exceeded our wildest dreams.
The date was November the 4th.
The unusual silence, due to the stoppage of the work, made me realize that something out of the ordinary had happened, and I was greeted by the announcement that a step cut in the rock had been discovered.
A single step, uncovered quite by accident, it's said by a young water carrier. And there were more beyond, buried in the earth. Carter knew they could lead to a tomb.
There was always the horrible possibility that the tomb was an unfinished one, never completed and never used. If it had been finished, there was the depressing probability that it had been completely plundered in ancient times. On the other hand, there was just the chance of an untouched or only partially plundered tomb, and it was with ill-suppressed excitement that I watched the descending steps of the staircase as, one by one, they came to light. Step succeeded step, and at the level of the 12th, toward sunset, there was disclosed the upper part of a doorway, blocked, plastered, and sealed. A sealed doorway. It was actually true then.
Carter was beside himself with excitement. But since Lord Carnarvon was in England, he recovered the excavation to protect against thieves and waited nearly 3 weeks for him to arrive. Carnarvon did so, accompanied by his daughter. On the 26th of November, they all stood beyond the door in an underground passageway, now cleared of debris.
30 feet down from the outer door, we came upon a second sealed doorway. The seal impressions in this case were less distinct, but still recognizable as those of Tutankhamun. With trembling hands, I made a tiny breach in the upper left-hand corner. Darkness and blank space, as far as an iron testing rod could reach, showed that whatever lay beyond was empty, and not filled like the passage we had just cleared. Candle tests were applied as a precaution against possible foul gases, and then, widening the hole a little, I inserted the candle and peered in. At first I could see nothing, the hot air escaping from the chamber causing the candle flame to flicker. But presently, as my eyes grew accustomed to the light, details of the room within emerged slowly from the mist. Strange animals, statues, and gold. Everywhere the glint of gold. For the moment, an eternity it must have seemed to the others standing by, I was struck dumb with amazement. And when Lord Carnarvon, unable to stand the suspense any longer, inquired anxiously, "Can you see anything?" it was all I could do to get out the words, "Yes, wonderful things."
It was an understatement. Carter was looking at a collection of Egyptian antiquities more fantastic than any known before. And this, it turned out, was a mere antechamber. Beyond it was another, smaller room, also filled with treasure. So much, in fact, that it took the team a further 3 months to catalogue and photograph it. Even this was not all, for the team now knew they must indeed have found the last resting place of the pharaoh. And in one wall of the smaller room was yet another sealed door.
My first care was to locate the wooden lintel above the door. Then, very carefully, I chipped away the plaster and picked out the small stones which formed the uppermost layer of the filling. The temptation to stop and peer inside at every moment was irresistible, and when, after about 10 minutes' work, I had made a hole large enough to enable me to do so, I inserted an electric torch. An astonishing sight its light revealed, for there, within a yard of the doorway, stretching as far as one could see and blocking the entrance to the chamber, stood what to all appearances was a solid wall of gold.
The team had come upon the actual burial chamber of the boy pharaoh, within which, surely, would be his sarcophagus and his mummified remains.
It was beyond any question the sepulchral chamber in which we stood, for there, towering above us, was one of the great gilt shrines beneath which kings were laid. So enormous was this structure that it filled within a little the entire area of the chamber. From top to bottom it was overlaid with gold, and upon its sides there were inlaid panels of brilliant blue faience, in which were represented, repeated over and over, the magic symbols which would ensure its strength and safety. Around the shrine, resting upon the ground, there were a number of funerary emblems, and, at the north end, the 7 magic oars the king would need to ferry himself across the waters of the underworld. 3,000, 4,000 years maybe have passed and gone since human feet last trod the floor on which you stand. And yet, as you note the signs of recent life around you, the half-filled bowl of mortar for the door, the blackened lamp, the finger mark upon the freshly painted surface, the farewell garland dropped upon the threshold, you feel it might have been but yesterday. The very air you breathe, unchanged throughout the centuries, you share with those who laid the mummy to its rest. Time is annihilated by little intimate details such as these, and you feel an intruder.
Since 1922, the treasures of Tutankhamun have been exhibited across the world and viewed by millions. But few can have been so moved by the sight of the riches as the individuals who first saw them beneath the dust and the rock of the desert.
It was curious, as we stood in the antechamber, to watch their faces as, one by one, they emerged from the door. Each had a dazed, bewildered look in his eyes, and each in turn, as he came out, threw up his hands before him, an unconscious gesture of impotence to describe in words the wonders that he had seen. They were indeed indescribable, and the emotions they had aroused in our minds were of too intimate a nature to communicate, even though we had the words at our command. It was an experience which, I am sure, none of us who were present is ever likely to forget.
The words of Howard Carter ending that edition of the Witness History podcast, presented by Mike Gallagher and first broadcast in 2010.